Welcome to Conversation with Buddy. I'm your host, Buddy Puckett. Well, Happy New Year to you, by the way. It's 2025. I hope you're ready because we're here. In the comments below, I would love to hear maybe one goal you want to accomplish this year. And when you do that, do the hashtag accountability because it's all about accountability. If you don't have accountability, it probably won't happen. So, and today, thinking about accountability, we're going to talk about men's health, specifically TRT, or what's called testosterone replacement therapy. If you've never heard about it, it's been around for a while, and it might be new to you. But I do have a professional here today, and let me introduce him, Chris Mckeown. Welcome.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure and honor to be here. I think it's a great time too. Speaking of accountability, it's huge.
Yeah. So we're in 2025 now. So let's start the year out right with men's health.
Yeah, exactly.
Would that be a fair thing to do?
I think so. Yeah, it's a lot of people have New Year's resolutions, and men's health is a big part of getting healthy and addressing those resolutions.
Yeah. So I was telling my wife on the way out this morning, since you took my recent blood test, I can talk about me. My A1C was really high, like 7.1. Mm-hmm. And so my goal, and you can hold me accountable, to be below 5.7.
That's great. That's a great goal. Yeah.
So we'll start with just kind of my goal. That would be it, but also to raise my testosterone. So I've learned about TRT and testosterone replacement therapy over a while, but I would say a lot of doctors don't really know. They kind of practice a lot of things, so that's not what they specialize in. So I'm kind of teeing you up a little bit, but let me introduce you real quick, and then we're going to dive into what TRT is.
Perfect.
Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, so here we go. So Chris, I know you live in Eugene, by the way.
Yeah, we just moved to Marcola technically, but
okay,
just outside of Eugene. So
Duck fan, of course.
I am, yeah.
Bleeding green,
it's a good
man.
year to be a Duck. A good few years, really.
Well, at the time of this recording, it's actually before New Year's, so the Rose Bowl has not happened yet. Chris and I do not know who is going to be the winner, but the Ducks are going to win.
It'll be the Ducks, yeah.
Be the Ducks. So you can just you can hold us to that. All right. Things about you, Chris. You are a nurse practitioner.
Yep.
And I really don't know what that means when it comes to, I know a doctor, nurse. Just tell us a little bit what a nurse practitioner is.
Yeah, we're technically mid-level, so nurse practitioners and physician assistants are similar. It just varies state to state, really. So we're certified through the Board of Nursing. It's a master's degree, so we can diagnose, we can treat. In the state of Oregon, you can have independent practice. So my practice, I started myself. I own it. I don't have a supervising physician, so everything just goes through me, basically. So we can diagnose, treat, prescribe, all of those things.
Got it. Love that. So you started Quali-T Men's Health independently on your own. And so I like the Quali-T as in testosterone.
Yep.
I like that. You love hunting and being outdoors. What type of hunting do you do?
Kind of anything I can, really. I grew up in the Midwest, so I was a big whitetail hunter, did that a lot. That was where I spent most of my time and efforts and thoughts.
Yeah.
Moved out here about over 3 years ago now, so blacktail hunting, trying to figure out elk hunting. So, mostly it's just been Roosevelt, which has been a challenge for sure for me.
But you also, bow hunt.
I do archery, yeah.
Okay.
So I haven't done rifle hunting ever in my life, actually.
No kidding.
So in Illinois, you could do shotgun, which is, I guess, sort of similar.
A slug, but yeah.
Yeah, but you could do both archery and shotgun in Illinois, where here you could choose one.
So how many animals have you killed?
That's a good, quite a few.
Okay.
Only one in Oregon. Only one deer, I guess. One blacktail in Oregon.
Yeah.
And then I have some nice friends with Delta Waterfowl. They've gotten me out duck hunting. So
nice.
That's been another new passion this year.
Okay. Life is good, man.
Yeah. Yep.
You are married to an amazing woman. What's your wife's name?
Julia. Yeah. She's the best. She's super supportive. And she's actually a physician assistant too. So we're both in that kind of mid-level field. Yeah.
You have lots to talk about at night.
We do. It's nice that we can understand the lingo and the issues going on and stuff. Because there's, with medicine, a lot of different interesting things that happen.
Right. How long have you guys been married?
Year and a half. It'll be July 14th. It'll be 2 years. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Best trip you've ever taken with her?
That's a good question. We've gone on so many.
Yeah.
We're big travelers. I would say probably Curacao has been one of the best. We went for one of our friends' birthdays, and she had like 18 friends there, something like that, and then get to do some diving, some deep sea fishing, and it was just a great time.
Where's that at again?
It's east coast of South America, or northeast coast of South America.
No way.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Venezuela. Yeah, super fun. Not super fun to get there, but it was great while we were there.
Oftentimes traveling is no fun getting there, but we love it when we're finally there.
That's true. Makes it worth it. Yeah. Too
cool. Okay, so your practice, let's talk about your practice a little bit. You guys don't take insurance, and you can explain why. We'll get to that in a moment. You're a local and you're a specialist.
Yep.
Your patients get your cell phone number. I got your cell phone number, and you do response. That's pretty cool. I appreciate that, by the way.
Yeah, I actually do respond to them as well.
Yeah. Imagine that. You're different than other cookie cutter protocols, and I want to hear about that when we get there. TRT doesn't cause prostate cancer. There's probably literature out there that says it does, and you're saying it does not.
There's one study in the 40s that really everybody kind of goes back to that had 3 people in it, and 1 person got prostate cancer. And so there's been a big fear of it over the last several decades. There's been a ton of good studies that have disproven it. There hasn't been one good study that I've seen that has actually proven it.
Yeah.
But it's what we're taught in school, and we're often taught, what we're first taught, or what we first learn just as people, is usually, what you believe and what you believe to be true. If you grow up and your parents tell you something, you're going to believe it. If you're told something in school, certainly you're going to believe that too. And it's kind of on us to go and look at the literature and actually see what's the truth.
Yeah. That's so true, man. If something is said often enough, we tend to believe it as truth.
True.
So, you don't have to be on TRT forever. That's good to know.
Yeah.
And then TRT can cause infertility, but there's things that you can do to augment that.
That's true.
Okay. Well, let me dive into my questions, and then I've got a lot of questions here, by the way. I've got my questions. You gave me one just to kind of pose to you, and then my wife has some questions.
Oh, great.
And my daughter works for a naturopath in town as well, and so then she has some questions. So I've kind of got a few angles for you.
Perfect.
Even though this is men's health. A lot of the men out there watching or listening, you're married. Your wife may want you on testosterone for, a few reasons. And it doesn't have to be just sexual. It can be your energy. It can be a lot of things. We'll talk about that as well.
Yeah, but there's a lot that goes into it for sure.
Okay. Well, first question is, what is testosterone? And I heard it's a hormone. And quite honestly, I don't even know.
Yep.
But as we think about hormones, we think only women have hormones, but that's completely not true. So fire away, man.
Yeah, so testosterone is what's called an androgen, which is a male sex hormone. And we need testosterone to do almost everything as males. It drives. So the most common symptoms of low testosterone is fatigue, so just feeling tired, decreased motivation, getting home from work and just kind of falling asleep on the couch kind of stuff. It goes into libido, so sex drive. You need it for erections, for good quality erections, maintaining erections. It's your testosterone's highest in the morning, which is why we have morning erections, right? You more likely to have central fat distribution or belly fat if you have low testosterone, weaker muscles, loss of muscle mass, difficulty maintaining or obtaining muscle mass, foggy thinking. All those things kind of fall into the bucket of low testosterone. You don't have to have all of those symptoms either. And I have a lot of guys come in and say, well, I talked to my primary care about it, and they asked, can you get an erection? And I can. And so they said, well, it's not testosterone. Mm-hmm. That's simply not true.
So the protocols out there from a typical medical doctor may not be accurate.
Not ever really from what I've seen, actually. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate guys like you that specialize. And by the way, I wanted to just tell the audience the way you and I met is you had reached out through Instagram. I don't know if you'd listened to a podcast or saw something, but I thought it was really cool a way that you reached out. It was very authentic and organic. You invited me in for just a free consultation, which is cool. I decided, I need to increase my testosterone for a lot of reasons as I'm getting older. And I think a lot of guys do as well. But I really appreciate that. And to me, I like hanging around guys that specialize. What's that saying? You can be the jack of all trades, master of none.
Yep.
I'd rather somebody master one, right?
Yeah, I agree. And that's why there are specialists out there. And the hard part is a lot of even, endocrinologists who are specialists, from my experience, they're just following the guidelines and the recommendations. And I disagree with a lot of the guidelines and recommendations because they just don't make sense, which we could always get into for sure if you want to.
Right.
And then just to clarify too, everybody can have a free visit. Just so everybody knows, it's not just me trying to get on a podcast.
Yeah. We'll put in the show notes a way to get hold of you, Chris, and then people can reach out. And you, by the way, you only deal with men only. You don't do any women's.
That's correct.
Testosterone.
Yeah, right. I don't deal with women's hormones, which is. It's really important for women to have a good hormone replacement provider as well. It's just not something that I, have as much experience in, of course. But it is super important. And a lot of times when men and women are both on hormone replacement therapy, they're just doing the best and living their best lives together because they're both feeling better and they're happier and their sex life's better and all those types of things. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what makes you different than everyone else. In some of your protocols, I want you to talk about we talked about the positive effects of testosterone replacement therapy, TRT. I want to hear about the side effects of TRT. I want to hear just more about just all the TRT, the forms of TRT as well, shots, pills, gels, pellets, the pros and cons, because I think there's a lot of stuff going on out there that may not be best. So I think after I met with you, you validated that one of those is not the best. I'm going to let you kind of unpack that.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. First, kind of what separates, I guess, me and Quali Men's Health apart. One, like we already mentioned, you get a free visit, which is pretty unheard of to have it's an hour long, up to an hour long free consultation. There's no strings attached. It truly is free, which I think is great. It's really important, I think, to get education out there because there's so much misinformation surrounding testosterone replacement therapy. And a lot of guys have been told really inaccurate stuff from a lot of different places or even their PCP. So that's one thing. You do get my cell phone number. Everybody does. They can text, call, email, get me directly, get me at 8, 9 p.m. or weekends or whatever. I'm pretty good about it unless I'm out hunting without service. Then it might be a day or two. But I think that's a few key things. I'm the only one that works there. I started it myself. I don't have people pushing anything on me or on my patients either. I've had people come in from other places and they feel like other places are car salesmen, is what I hear a lot. No offense to car salesmen, but I think we can all appreciate the gesture for that. Mine's a very much, here's all of the information, do with it as you will if you want to do anything, and if you don't, it's your decision too. So I think that's really important, not to be pushed or persuaded into something that you maybe don't want to do or not fully comfortable with.
Yeah.
I think that's all really important. As far as like protocols go, there's a kind of a cookie cutter approach out there that we talked about at our visit. And there's a couple different routes that places will go. So speaking of some like kind of men's health clinics or TRT clinics, they often like to do one large injection per week of testosterone. My issue with that is you get kind of a big spike and a big valley. And I don't like that. So just take a step back from that even. Testosterone is produced at nighttime when you're sleeping. And so every morning it's the highest. And so you do have a fluctuation or a wave of testosterone. So highest in the morning, you use it during the day, you build it back up at nighttime. What happens if you're doing just one large injection per week, it's just not very good and your body's not very used to it. So you get a big spike again, and then you get a kind of a big valley. And so what I've seen in the past is people will be doing an injection on, say, Monday. By the time Friday comes around, they say, I can't wait till Monday. I can't wait to do my injection, which I don't think you should feel that way. I think you should just feel good every day, all the time, stable. So I actually prefer twice a week injections typically. There's some outlying other reasons. Maybe once a week is better for the rare individual, but typically twice a week is better. Even more often can be better, but then you kind of juggle with, people maintaining consistency with doing more than 2 injections a week. So two kind of seems like the sweet spot.
Yeah. Which is what I'm doing.
Yep.
So, well, you said something that was interesting. We live in a society today is, I hear the term rise and grind, right? Get up early, go to bed late, go. But then you said testosterone is made while we're sleeping, right?
Yep.
So what's, we'll get into like, what we're eating, maybe the underwear we're wearing that are polyester filled, not cotton filled, all those effects that are causing, what would you say the number one problem with testosterone is because, well, I know that it's not just in old guys now. I know it's in younger guys as well. So walk us through what's causing this low testosterone in even younger men these days as well.
Yeah, it's a great question. I get it a lot. I don't know that we have an exact answer per se, and I wouldn't say it's just one thing either. I think it's a combination of quite a few things. I think it's the food we're eating, and ultra processed, not good for you food. We're getting away from kind of farm to table stuff like we used to get. I think it's looking at microplastics too. There's even tires going down the road are putting out microplastics. I carry a metal water bottle, but a lot of people drink out of plastic water bottles, and some people reuse plastic water bottles and heating up stuff in the microwave in plastic. Just because it's microwave safe doesn't mean that it's safe for you. It just means that it won't start on fire or melt in the microwave. So there's those BPAs and forever chemicals that can get into our bodies. There's studies that look into, testicular tissue and penile tissue, and every single sample in the studies have microplastics in them. We have microplastics in our brain too, and our pituitary sends a signal to our testicles to make testosterone. So that could be a part of it. Certainly, I do think that is affecting it. We're more stagnant as a population. We're not as active or outside as much as we used to be. I think that's a big part of it too. So I think there's just a lot of different kind of areas that affect it. I've heard even people say, well, our cell phones in our pockets can do it. I don't know if that's true or not, but nobody, I guess, could say one way or the other with certainty. So there's just a lot of different things that are affecting it, and it's becoming less and less, or more common, younger and younger, I should say. It's, as a population, we're dropping around 1% to 3% per year on average. So we're 50% lower than we were 50 years ago.
Right.
And instead of addressing it, we've just taken the testosterone range from a high of around 12 or 1300 to 850 or 900. So we're not addressing it. We're just saying, well, now we'll just bring the ranges down to make it look like you're okay, or make it look like you're quote unquote normal, which is not right.
Yeah. So the range now is what? I don't know, what's the range, 300 to 850 or?
It depends on the lab. Usually it's anywhere from 250 to 900, kind of depending on the lab. Every lab is a little bit different.
Yeah. And what would you say about a guy who has testosterone below 300 or 400 or 500? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I look at you as a whole. So do you have the symptoms of low testosterone, like we talked about earlier, fatigue, decreased libido, erectile dysfunction, weight gain, muscle loss, foggy thinking, those things? It doesn't necessarily matter. So to step back so people can understand better, maybe diagnostically, there's a diagnosis for low testosterone called hypogonadism, and you have to have 2 total testosterones drawn on 2 separate occasions before 10 a.m., less than 300. I don't follow that guideline like we talked about. I don't like to follow a lot of these guidelines because, one, it's first thing in the morning when your testosterone's the highest. They don't look at when it's in the evening when you're supposed to be having time with your kids and family.
Right. All that energy that you don't have.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It doesn't look at symptoms at all. It just looks at numbers. The total testosterone of 300 is a very low number anyway, in my opinion. And like you mentioned, I have patients all the time, 300, 400, and 500 that have symptoms of low testosterone. There's also, it doesn't look at free testosterone. So total testosterone is how much you have. That's, the 300 or wherever.
Yeah.
There's 2 main things that bind to testosterone. So there's albumin, which is a protein, and then sex hormone binding globulin, SHBG. And the issue with that is testosterone goes into receptor sites. If something's bound to it, like albumin and SHBG, then it can't go in that receptor site. It's like a puzzle piece going in the wrong spot. It's just not going to work. It's not going to go in there. You can't use it. And so what's left over is your free or available testosterone. That's the most important number because that's what you can actually use. And I've had guys with a total testosterone of 600 or even 700, but they have very high SHBG, so that sex hormone binding globulin. So they have a low, or on the low side, free testosterone. So they're having all of these symptoms. They might go to their provider and have their testosterone checked. It's 400, 500, 700, whatever. But they don't look at free testosterone. And they say, well, your testosterone's great. You don't need it.
Interesting.
But then you get them started on testosterone replacement therapy. They're having more energy. They're feeling better at work. Sex life's better. Their exercise is better. It's a game changer for these guys.
Yeah. That's incredible, man. I don't think we understand testosterone as a hormone, that it affects our, our evening time with our family, our energy and stuff like that. So I think that's interesting. I wonder how, when I think of other hormones like a stress hormone, cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, kind of like the fight or flight. If we're always on, we're Americans, man. We're up early, we're up late, we're on our phones all the time, we're always engaged with something. How is that affecting that whole testosterone? Does that have played a part of that?
It does, yeah. So being stressed can decrease testosterone. So if we're always kind of in this stressed state, which a lot of people are, you have lower testosterone. And when you have lower testosterone, you don't deal with stress as well. So it's just kind of a negative spiral downwards too. Yeah. And so a lot of times, if you can improve your testosterone levels, you feel better overall. You feel, more confident, and you're able to perform better. And a lot of times stress goes down with that, and a lot of times people are worried about like, oh, I don't want mood swings or quote unquote roid rage or things like that. I find it to be very opposite when you're looking at therapeutic testosterone replacement therapy, which is what I do. And I get your levels to kind of tap into the reference range. And again, you're feeling better and doing better. And you go from not feeling well and feeling run down and not being able to handle stress and difficult situations to now feeling much better, and you're more confident, and you're able to let those things kind of roll off your back, and you're not as angry as fast. And I know that to be true for myself as well. You can ask my wife if you meet her, but I know I'm a better partner. I'm a better provider. I'm just a better person when my levels are better for testosterone.
And how old are you right now?
I'm 31.
31.
Yeah, I've been on testosterone since I was 29.
Okay. So a young guy, you think guys that are over 50 might need it, but really you're saying through the foods we eat, all the toxins, all this stuff, it's affecting our younger generation as well.
100%. Yeah. I have guys in their 20s with a total testosterone less than 300. And they're not guys that, people say, oh, they must have done, abused steroids or done this or that. They're not, and I believe them. My guys that come in and talk to me, they're very honest. They come to see me because they're not doing well. And and a lot of times they've exhausted other avenues, like going to their primary care or trying these, supplements or whatever, online clinics and stuff, and they're just not doing well. And so they come to see me and they're like, they lay it all out, which I really appreciate, because it's not always fun to talk about. If you're not doing well as guys, we don't like to do that. But, it's a safe place. We talk about all that stuff, get them feeling right, get it addressed, and they start to feel better and do better. But it's not an age thing necessarily anymore. Yeah. Your testosterone starts to decline around 30 to 35. And then from there on out, you go lower. And if you're starting out with a low testosterone, if you start out with a 500 level of testosterone, you're sure going to feel those symptoms a whole lot sooner than, our grandparents or parents that might have had a total testosterone of 1500, right? So it takes a lot longer for them to notice these symptoms of low testosterone because they have a better starting point. Yeah.
What are some, maybe some podcasts that you listen to? Is there any guys out there, and maybe you need to start a podcast to really talk about, testosterone and stuff, but who do you listen to in the health world that can help us to get healthy this year? This is really an important year to begin getting healthy. Yeah. It's not getting easier.
Just for general health stuff, they both of these guys talk a little bit about hormones too. Peter Attia, so The Drive with Peter Attia is a great podcast. And then Huberman Lab with Dr. Andrew Huberman. I was listening to that a little bit on the way up here too. I listened to one of your podcasts and some of his. Yeah. Those are both really good. Just general health. You can kind of search through there and kind of pick and play. I think they have several hundred podcasts, so you don't have to listen to everyone. But if you're having trouble with sleep, go listen to their sleep podcast. Search through both of their podcasts. Yeah. If you're looking at testosterone specifically, it's not a podcast, but there's a YouTube channel, TRT and hormone optimization. And generally speaking, as a whole, they're, from what I've seen, the best as far as information out there. Yeah. They also have a Facebook page too that you can go on and ask questions, which is really nice. Typically, there's good information on there, but with anything on the internet, there's some bad players too. But
I think it all plays together. I mean, Huberman, he talks a lot about a lot of health things that can affect testosterone, where you're measuring testosterone and you're focused on testosterone. So let me go into a few questions like my daughter had. These may overlap, so you can ignore ones that do. But why do you think testosterone is getting lower and lower in men and women? I think we pretty much covered that. Is there anything we didn't cover?
I like that she asked men and women because women actually have more testosterone than estrogen, and most people I don't think realize that. They just think, oh, well, women have estrogen, so that's all they have, and they don't have testosterone. They actually have more testosterone than estrogen. It's just, it looks like there's less because of how it's basically measured or laid out on the lab values too.
Interesting.
So I think that's just an interesting point.
So women need testosterone.
A lot of times they do.
Okay,
Yeah, especially
okay.
postmenopausal, kind of perimenopausal, but really postmenopausal, because when women go through menopause, their hormones just turn off,
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
Is there a way to raise testosterone naturally? Supplements, exercise? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question that I get a lot too. I think it's a fair question. People don't want to go on testosterone replacement therapy, which I can appreciate. So there's, a lot of times you go to primary care, and I don't mean to kind of belittle or attack primary care. It's just what we're taught in school. So
yeah,
they're just doing their job, and a lot of times they're held to a standard by who they're employed by. And so, can you increase it naturally? Potentially. How much is the question? And if you're going from even 300 to 500, is that even enough to get you where you want to be? And that's pretty tough to do. I mean, there's studies that show if you work on you're very, very strict with diet and exercise, truthfully more than 95% of people probably would be or are, especially with low testosterone, it's super hard.
Yeah.
And you work on your big muscle groups, your thigh and your glutes, maybe 200, maybe 250 points for your total testosterone level. And that's if you're extremely strict every single day, all the time. So I don't think that's super reasonable to expect from, especially somebody with low testosterone, because you just don't have the energy. You can't recover. You can't be in the gym doing those things, really. Yeah. And then not eating well, typically because you're not exercising well. There's supplements like ashwagandha and those types of things that some studies show it improves your testosterone level a little bit. Again, if you improve your testosterone 100 points, it doesn't do anything, Right. If you go from 300 to 400, so what,
So maybe it's wise to get on a protocol with a guy like you to get those numbers up, making sure you're clear on what you're doing. You are including exercise, eating right, proper, rest, all that.
Yeah.
And then decide to back off on the TRT if you want to.
Yeah. And, like I think we opened with one of the questions, like you don't have to be on testosterone forever. That is true. What I tell my guys though is if you want the benefits of the testosterone levels that you're at, the 800-900 or whatever it might be, dependent on the person, you have to stay on testosterone. So it's a kind of a yes and no. So yes, if you want the benefits, you have to stay on it because as you get older, your testosterone just goes lower, Do you have to though forever? You don't have to forever. You can get off it. Studies show that you should go back to where before you started on testosterone replacement therapy. If you've been on it for 10 years, I would expect it to be lower because you're 10 years older. But generally speaking, you can stop. And that's a big fear of people. Like they don't want to get on this thing that they have to do forever. And again, you can stop, but also you're investing in your quality of life, which is a big reason why my business is named Quali-T Men's Health, because a lot of people think of testosterone and just think, oh, they're just trying to get jacked in the gym or whatever.
No.
Sure, that's part of it. I want you to be healthier, and we do talk about exercise every time, but it's really, I want you to just to feel better, be able to be a better partner, be a better parent, be a better coworker, all of those things. It's more than just having more muscle.
Right.
Which is helpful as you get older and having stronger muscles and bones. You're less likely to be frail as an older person and fall and break your hip and pass away within a year. But
I want to be stronger. I'm 56, but I want to be stronger at 60 than I was at 50. Stronger at 50 than I was at 40 and so on. So I'm working hard to do that. So
yeah, testosterone is a huge help for that. Yeah, but you have to do your part. I tell that to guys too, like you have to meet it halfway. You still have to focus on diet, exercise.
It's not a free ride, huh?
It's not a free ride. No. And some people, unfortunately do think that, and that's why there's a big part of that education. You get that hour of education because you still have to do your part. It helps it makes that mountain into a molehill kind of a thing, as opposed to the other way around. Yeah. So it's helpful to have testosterone, to be able to exercise and not feel terrible while exercising, and you can actually recover and enjoy exercising again and getting stronger. And when you're doing that, you're going to eat better because you don't want to waste all that effort that you just put in. And then you're exercising and eating better, so you're sleeping better usually, and it all kind of comes together.
It snowballs either in a bad way if you don't do it, or in a good way if you do it and you're accountable to it.
Exactly.
So last question from my daughter Molly was, do other countries also have low testosterone compared to the U.S. and have the levels dropped like ours have?
From what I've seen, it's a global phenomenon. Yep. Especially in the kind of developed worlds, the standard American diet places. Yep. So India has a lot of really good studies on testosterone and low testosterone too. Yeah. So it's a global issue that's happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Here's some questions from my wife. What is the best way to test testosterone? What do you do, I guess?
Yeah, so it's just a lab test. So technically, again, it should be drawn before 10 a.m. because that's when it's the highest.
Okay.
I think that does have merit to see what is your best as opposed to checking in the evening. If at your best it's 300 or 400, when you're too low in the evening, and really too low in the morning too. But it's just a lab test. So a blood test, I use Quest Diagnostics. You go there, get your labs drawn.
You have to fast?
You do not have to fast.
Don't have to fast.
And then they basically give you a number.
Would it be, I'm thinking from my perspective, wouldn't it be also good to see what that evening number looks like? What if it was 100 points lower? Like, maybe that's the wake-up call for guys to go, you know what? It isn't as good as I thought it was, especially in the evening when I want it to be solid. Maybe test me in the evening and my testosterone is 800. That would be motivating. If it was like 200 at night, that would be bad.
Yeah, and I would expect it to drop throughout the day. So if you're starting at what I would consider a low point, you're going to be low in the evening. Guys are welcome to check in the evening too if they want to. It doesn't bother me. I don't follow those guidelines anyway. I'm not handcuffed by insurance, so I'm not real picky on it, I guess.
Gotcha. So tell me about the insurance since you're talking about that. What's the challenge with insurance when it comes to TRT?
Well, what's the challenge with insurance with anything?
Maybe just talk about that. That's the whole, because I know
there's obviously the frustrations out there with insurance. So with testosterone replacement therapy, again, there's that diagnosis. 2 total testosterone is drawn on 2 separate occasions to less than 300 before 10 a.m. in the morning. I used to work at a place that took insurance, and I had a patient that came back at 298 for total testosterone. He was covered by insurance. He had a different patient came back at 301, and they were not covered by insurance. Same symptoms, same everything, just 3 points different or so for testosterone. And then you get into, well, what is the recommendation for testosterone replacement therapy? The recommendation currently is if you have hypogonadism, the low testosterone, then you should do 1 injection of testosterone cypionate every other week, which is a terrible protocol. The reason for that is that typically after your injection of testosterone cypionate, your levels will peak over 24 to 48 hours, plateau with a little bit of a decline over 6 days, and then really start to fall off after that. So from day 7 to 14, you're falling off. You do your injection, a day or 2 later, you're back up. And so you have this big roller coaster of emotion or of hormones, which can also have roller coaster emotions too, which is just the worst way to do it. If we remember, our body's used to having a pretty steady state producing every night. And if you go from a big spike to a big valley, that's not the best thing for you. It's actually worse for you for a lot of guys because testosterone, it's testosterone replacement therapy. So it does, when you're on testosterone, it does turn off your production of testosterone. And what happens if you're doing this every other week injection is that I'll find guys often will have at their trough, their lowest point, a lower testosterone than when they first started on testosterone replacement therapy in between injections because it goes so low over that next 7 days that they're lower than they started at. And so these guys are not doing well with it. They're not feeling good. And so a lot of guys will say, well, testosterone didn't work for me. Well, your protocol didn't work for you, and that's the sad part too, because there have been guys that have luckily been able, I guess luckily is a funny word, but been able to get testosterone covered by insurance, which is pretty rare, but then they follow that guideline. And then they say, well, I gave it a shot, no pun intended, and it didn't work for me. You just need to have a better protocol. You need to have better levels, I just had a patient come in the other day and he's seeing an endocrinologist and they're doing 1 small injection. They were, I don't want to give away too much information, I guess, but he was doing 1 small injection every other week. Patient did terrible. He asked to do the injection every week. Still wasn't doing good enough. They checked his levels at peak and said, well, your levels are, I think they were like 700. They're a little bit high. We're going to decrease your dose. So he's having all the symptoms of low testosterone. They checked his peak testosterone level and we're trying to lower his dose to make his symptoms worse. And so then he came to me luckily. So there's just a lot of people out there that are just following numbers, following, guidelines, following insurance, and any more insurance is the dictator of health. If you order a scan for somebody, you have to fight through insurance to get them to get that scan. Pretty much everything that you do anymore under insurance is a fight.
Insurance is a dictator of health. That's very interesting. I look at a lot of videos and from different doctors like Huberman and Gary Brecka and probably a few others. but really talking about the exact same thing, validating what you're saying. So, well, if somebody's looking for, and maybe they don't live in our area, how would somebody find a good doctor that does what you do? Obviously, the people who live here, they can come see you. But if somebody's listening somewhere else, how would they find a good doctor?
Yeah, that can be a challenge sometimes. Typically, what I would say is if you find a kind of a quote unquote men's hormone place or men's clinic or TRT clinic, if they're trying to start you out on 200 milligrams per week of testosterone, so 1 injection per week, I would say go somewhere else just off the bat typically. Mm-hmm. A lot of places will also start you off on another medication called an aromatase inhibitor. And to kind of walk that back through a little bit too, testosterone is partly converted into estradiol, which is part of estrogen. And the more testosterone you have, the more estradiol you have. And so people will often start you on testosterone and start you on this medication. One, you shouldn't start people on 2 medications at the same time, I don't think, either way, because if something happens, if there's issues, you don't know which is causing it, and now you're kind of shooting in the dark, okay? Yeah. Secondly, checking estradiol, a blood test for estradiol, doesn't really stand or have much merit for us. It gets a little bit confusing, but so testosterone is exocrine. We make testosterone and secrete it, and so the labs are pretty accurate for that. It is converted at the cellular or tissue level, so it's estradiol is intracrine, so it's different. So when we check a lab work or a blood test for estradiol, we're not really seeing what's in the tissue. We're not seeing what's in the bone, the heart, the brain, the muscle. And so blocking off of this erroneous number is not best practice in my opinion. And a ton of places do it because that's what other people do. That's what we've done. So we're just going to keep doing it. I haven't seen a single study that supports that. I've seen a lot of studies that support having a good or even an elevated estradiol level, even in men, because you have to, again, have that for muscle health, for it's cardioprotective, so protective for your heart. It's neuroprotective, so protective for your brain. And you have to have it for bone health. And this is why postmenopausal women often will get osteoporosis or weaker bones because they don't have estradiol anymore. It's turned off. Okay, so now you're going to a place, they're giving you testosterone in a not a great fashion, and they're blocking the protective benefits of estradiol off of a random number. And a lot of places will have your total testosterone elevated, so that's flagged high, and then they're fine with that, but then your estradiol is flagged high, but, we need to bring this down. Well, why is one okay and not the other, So I don't even check it. You really don't need to. People say, well, I have high estrogen symptoms. Well, let's look into what's actually going on. Let's address it. These aromatase inhibitors are just an easy, here, take this and go away kind of a thing, which is not my practice. It's not my approach. Mine is what's going on. Do you have more stress? Are you drinking more alcohol? How's your diet doing? Are you exercising? Do we need to adjust your testosterone dose? Do we need to do more frequent, less frequent, higher dose, lower dose? What's going on? Let's address it. Let's figure out what the actual issue is without taking away the benefits. So, there's worry that testosterone replacement therapy, it causes heart attacks and strokes and things like that. It's a worry in the community. It's a speculation in the community. I haven't seen any correlation or causation, studies with testosterone replacement therapy doing that. There's actually studies that show the benefit of testosterone, but really it's not testosterone, it's the estradiol, which is secondary to your testosterone use. That's cardioprotective. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's another thing that kind of separates us apart from a lot of places. So I guess that's a long way to answer your question. If you go somewhere and they say, well, we do 200 milligrams per week and you're going to start an aromatase inhibitor and all these other things, if they're trying to start more than one thing, even I would just say call somewhere else.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Go back. So TRT to me is kind of fairly new. I've probably seen it the last few years as I needed it. Yeah. How far does TRT go back anyway?
It's a good question. I don't remember exactly, but it's early 1900s. I can't remember exactly when.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's been around all the way back then.
It's been around for a very long time.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It's much different now than it was then, but
Oh, I know. See here. Here's a question from my wife. Maybe you already touched on it, but is it just as easy for a woman to get testosterone from a doctor as it is for a man? Is it different how men and women are treated differently? And maybe you can't answer the question because you don't treat women, but could you prescribe if you decided to, could you prescribe testosterone to a woman the same way as you would a man?
I could. It would just be much smaller dose.
Smaller dose?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So they might need a testosterone of 60 to 80 or something like that.
Not 200 or 100 per week.
Oh no, sorry. Total testosterone level in their blood work.
Got it.
Of 60 to 80. Thanks for the clarification. As opposed to 800 or 900 for men.
Got
so they need
it.
a much smaller. They need a much smaller dose. The harder part is finding again a provider that will do that for you. So estrogen, women can get estrogen pretty easily. It seems like going through their OB-GYN and get estradiol or estrogen. A little bit better now. It kind of gets into a rabbit hole of the WHI trial, the Women's Health Initiative study that came out that said that hormones are bad essentially, and that they cause breast cancer and they cause all these types of different cancers and things. If you look at the study, that's actually not necessarily true, depending on the type of medication that you use, which again, I don't super get into that very deeply, but there's people out there like if you can find another cash pay place or something that doesn't take insurance, that's the best option, the best route typically, because there's not a FDA approved testosterone for women. The last time I've looked, you can still do compounded testosterone like I do, but you're not going to get that through an insurance driven practice typically.
Very interesting.
Yep.
Wow. It sounds like to me you do a lot of education.
Education's huge, super important. Because
people, they've believed whatever story has been told, and that's probably not the best practice. So how would somebody go back and just, maybe do their own study? And you said, look at all the research, or how would they do that? Where would they go?
Yeah, I love when people educate themselves, but with testosterone, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So that's the hard part, to kind of like look at where are you getting the information from. You need to look at actual studies. You can go to like PubMed and things like that and look at the actual studies, look at the outcomes, look at how big was the sample? Was it actually a good study put together? Who funded the study as well is a big one.
Yeah, it would be a big one.
Yeah.
FDA.
Yeah. With all studies in medicine, you have to look at who funded it, because there's a lot of studies that are put on by whoever made that medication and they turn out great. And then there's independent studies where they'll say quite the opposite. So that's a big part of it too. But again, just finding a good, competent provider, which can be hard, like we've talked about, is a really important thing to do. That TRT and hormone optimization group really does have a lot of good information and good videos on there. It does not replace having a good provider and getting labs drawn and actually talking to somebody. But it's a good place to start. You can ask questions. You can search through there and ask, search if there's other similar questions, which there probably are, because there's a lot of people that ask questions on there. Yeah. And there's providers. I go on there sometimes and answer questions. There's a lot of good providers on there, like Dr. Jordan Grant. He's a phenomenal guy. They answer a lot of these questions, and it's just free. We don't get anything from it, but it's just, we believe that this needs to be educated, because there's millions of guys that are suffering from this, or guys that have, again, been told they're fine. Like, oh, your testosterone's 300, it's within the reference range, you're fine. And it's just not true.
Not true. Yeah. That's good. Well, Chris, this has been great, man. Just really unpacking this. You've told me this, I've heard this before, but it's good to have it on a podcast where we can go back and re-listen to all that you talked about, because there's a lot you unpacked.
There's a ton of information. Yeah, there's still a ton more, but we could talk all day about probably too. But there's a lot of information. There's even more misinformation for sure.
Is there, we're going to wrap up here in a moment, but is there anything that we didn't cover? Anything that you really wanted to cover that was important, but we didn't get to it yet?
Yeah, I would say a big or common question that I have, and we touched on it briefly, that people are worried that they will become infertile with testosterone replacement therapy, which is potentially true. Okay. It's kind of a longer, deeper discussion to have, but the short of it is testosterone replacement therapy so exogenous outside testosterone does turn off your testosterone production, which can lead to decreased sperm production, which can lead to infertility. It's not guaranteed, so you could always have a sperm sample before, sperm analysis before and during if you wanted to. There's other medications that we can use as well, like HCG, which is Pregnal is the trade name now. You can't compound it anymore, but you can use that to continue. The goal is, again, nothing's guaranteed, but the goal is to maintain intratesticular testosterone, which maintains your sperm production. So far, I'm 2 for 2 for that. So I've had a patient that was successful, and this will come out after I see my family. So my wife's also pregnant too, and I've been on testosterone for years. And so I've used HCG. It was successful for us. The Dr. Grant I was talking about earlier, I talked to him. I think he's 19 out of 20 or something like that for people that were successful. And the one that wasn't successful, we didn't have a sperm analysis, or he didn't have a sperm analysis before, so we don't know, was it the testosterone that caused it, or was he infertile before testosterone even? So there's good success rate, there's good options, there's good stuff we can do about it. It's not guaranteed, and it's not something that I would necessarily let you hold you back. And you don't want to live a rough life for several years before you have kids and want to come in. And the healthier you are when you have kids, the healthier kids you'll have too. And that goes for both the man and the woman in that scenario.
Yeah. Well, congrats on your wife being pregnant, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. It's
our first. A couple weeks. So, yeah, very cool. How far along?
She's about 7 weeks, so we're pretty early still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
how's she feeling?
She's doing great.
Yeah.
She's doing super great. She's a boss for sure.
Do you guys know a boy or girl yet, or is it
not yet? No.
Secret?
No, we haven't even gone to OB yet. Yeah.
I always tell the story. My wife and I, we had kids, and we decided we would never find out. We just wait until they came out, and voila, we had a daughter, and voila, we had another daughter. So
I think we're gonna find out.
Yeah, and most people do. I don't have any problem with it, but just something we chose to do. But I always ask the question.
Yeah, my wife thought about it. I think it's just nice to know. I think
if you can find out, you're probably gonna.
Yeah. I think we're gonna find out, and then you can get the toys and whatever clothes and stuff.
Totally. Yeah. Well, Chris, great having you on here, man. It is 2025. I just want to say to everyone listening, it's a big deal, men's health, and it's getting worse. By the way, it's not getting better. Just go to the gym sometime and look around, and you're going to see a lot of overweight people. I'm probably one of those that you're going to see at the gym, and it has to do with what we eat, how often we work out. It has to be to do with being accountable. So I would really challenge you this year, be accountable to somebody. Figure out one thing that you want to do and be accountable with it as though it's the only thing that mattered. So it's going to be a great year. I'm excited. I personally have some goals that I'm going to accomplish. Chris is going to help me accomplish a couple of those goals. And my wife, she's going to hold me accountable. And so, hey, I'm all in. So I hope you are as well. If you ever want to be on the podcast, we'd love to have you. If you know of anybody that would love to be on the podcast to share their story, we'd love to have them as well. So, Happy New Year. Chris, thank you so much for being here. And if somebody want to reach out to you and connect with you, make an appointment with you, talk with you, how would they get a hold of you? Yeah,
it was great to be here, buddy. I appreciate you inviting me on. You can get my website, Quali-T-menshealth.com. It's, again, Quali-T, so Quali-T like testosterone, menshealth.com. My cell phone's on the website too, so you can call that, get right to me, 971-240-3451. We also have an Instagram page and a Facebook page, so whatever.
Dude, you're everywhere, man.
Try to be, yeah.
Well, I'm going to put all that in the show notes and make sure people can connect with you. And I really appreciate that you're all in, man. You're about men's health. So
yeah, for sure. Somebody asked me, what do I do for my day job? And this is it.
This is it. This is your day job.
Because there's a lot of people that do it kind of as a side gig, and those are also probably people that you might not want to go to see.
Right. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for being here. We appreciate you, man. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, buddy.
You bet.